Well, hey folks, it's your old pal King Waspinator here. Welcome back to Total Party Skills. This is, I guess, another little bonus addendum to the video I did just a few hours ago about the classic classes in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition and just some tips on how to DM, their guilds and all that kind of stuff. Specifically, someone wanted a few more thoughts on Thieves Guilds and how realistic they are, or how they would operate. And I figured also, could maybe give a few more additional thoughts on how I personally would approach doing things like mages guilds and fighters guilds and such. I'm not really going to bring up cults. This is more about guilds. If you're looking for a more, slightly gritty, real-world feeling kind of medieval setting, then most of your guilds wouldn't be for any of these things. They're going to be like carpenters guilds for certain specific kind of labor forces. They're in many ways just kind of a prototype precursor to, modern-day labor unions in their own kind of way. So a thing I personally like using them for is, they're good candidates to be your banking operations in your setting. Characters, especially in Dungeons & Dragons, will accumulate a lot of gold and treasure, and even worse, tons of small denomination coins that they don't really want to carry around. Who wants to carry around 5,000 copper coins? You're not even really going to be spending them because all the stuff you want to buy is measured in gold units, so you're going to have to find someone who can realistically exchange all this for them, so they can get like more condensed platinum coins, or switch it out for some precious gems that they can use as trade in place of heavier, denser, larger volumes of metal coins. And guilds are great for that, without having to like invent some sort of kind of like Hercules or Xena kind of thing going on, where you have too much of a modern nod going on in your medieval fantasy world. Thieves in specific, yes, thieves guilds on a global scale only really work if there is like a global civilization with consistent laws throughout the land. With most guilds, I feel like really they should be more kind of regional things. It's not like there is just one fighters guild and there is just one thieves guild. It's just various regions or cities or kingdoms that are organized enough and have enough of a grip on law enforcement and taxing and for the trade of various items across borders, and you're not allowed to bring certain things in, and why they feel that way. There actually has to be a need for criminal trade in order for there to be smuggling. Also, you need to have some amount of civilization going on with enough of a population density that you have a poor class that might need to actually resort to thievery. I guess one of the key questions about having a thieves guild is how literal are you going to be taking that? Are we going for a Dickensian Oliver Twist Victorian London kind of thieves guild, where it's like a bunch of orphans in the city who all meet in secret in a sewer cave, like Solo in Star Wars, the Solo? Where like some crooked old man, gives them orders and takes everything that they steal from them, and he just barely doles out a couple pences to them, and is secretly hoarding all the gold and promising that they'll get their share when they get old enough. Are we going to go with that kind of thieves guild, where it's literally just a guild for thieves? Or is it called a thieves guild, but that's just kind of like a blanket term in the same way that we say gangs or mafia, when each and every one of these things is kind of like its own individual kind of thing in its own region. Some of them are more or less connected. In our own real world in modern times, the international syndicates and all that kind of stuff do exist, but we live in an international world, so it gives them room to breathe. But in Roman times, were there international smuggling rings taking stuff out of Colombia to Europe? No. Same thing would be going on in your D&D world. The level of thieves guildery going on in your setting is kind of in some ways like shadow to the level of civilization and all the negatives that come along with that. But you do need to consider some stuff like what is illegal in the various kingdoms that you're dealing with that would have a thieves guild in it. So like what exactly is the criminal conduct? What kind of personal services might some of the people in the city might be offering that gets frowned on, or is that frowned on at all in the setting? Um, is there like anti-drug stance? Is it all purely just because of smuggling-based stuff? Uh, a really great source book that actually describes all this in actually really excellent detail. It's one of the most handy source books for Dungeons and Dragons ever written, and it is adaptable to like all versions of D&D, and is also useful for like a whole lot of other role-playing games, just in that it gives a excellently depicted general template of the crime flow and organizational charting of what a medieval fantasy crime guild would operate like. Would be Den of Thieves. I see that very clearly for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. You should be able to get it on Drive-Thru RPG in some form or another. Like easily, like of all the various source books ever written for D&D from the very dawn of time, this is like easily one of the very top 5 ones you can get your hands on. Always useful, because Thieves Guilds are a bit of a nut to crack in some ways. You can do like Elder Scrolls Oblivion kind of thing, where the Thieves Guild is just a bunch of independent little groups of thieves that all like here worship some sort of like folk hero, mysterious thief in the night guy who goes from town to town, and your character gets to become by the end of, and all that kind of stuff. Or I feel generally for most settings, Thieves Guilds are probably like centered purely within their own city. Maybe not even the entire kingdom. Like each major population center probably has its own Thieves Guild and might have its own name and have some little wiggle room in how they all operate. And they only really connect with each other through whatever kind of smuggling operations are necessary in order to be able to get things to and from regions that their ruling powers don't want those goods coming to or from, or they want a cut of the money of, and people don't want to have to pay that, so they're having to have it smuggled in or out. All that kind of stuff. That's what smuggling was back then. It was less about like trying to keep cocaine out of your country or anything like that. It was more about like, I want to charge you like an extra 400 gold coins if you want to sell your wool, and you want to sell your wool, so you're going to smuggle your wool in and just sell off to somebody who's already been contacted and is going to buy it through all these various layers of connection. Thieves Guilds should be very nebulous. Like to agree that they're even really a guild in the same sense that a mage's guild would be, or a porter's guild would be, is kind of questionable. I kind of feel in some ways the Thieves Guild is kind of a nickname. It exists in that there's a bunch of thieves in your city and other criminals, and they know each other and help each other out and all that kind of stuff. But it's not like you have to sign up or anything. There's no one person in control of the whole thing. No one elects anybody. Everyone just does their thing. It could just, and it's just known as the Thieves Guild, just kind of like as a joke almost, a nickname. And that way the Thieves Guild both exists and doesn't exist at the same time in your setting. Like I said, it depends on how literal you even want to take the whole concept of Thieves Guild, or are we talking organized crime? These are kind of slightly different things. This book is if you want to, like, a non-modern world specific medieval fantasy type crime organization. This describes that. Or you can use all manner of real-world analogs: Yakuza, the Tongs, the Italian, Sicilian mafia, Colombian cartels. Like it's all for grabs if you're looking for inspiration for whatever kind of criminal activity you want to be going on in your Dungeons & Dragons world. When you're coming up with homebrew settings and stuff, before you even get your players, since you don't know what they're going to play, you should at least have some notation on exactly what the crime life is like in your setting, in case someone does want to play a rogue and does want to lean more into the classic thief kind of archetype of rogue. So, that's about it. I guess on thieves, fighters guilds, I probably dislike them in concept the most, and also like Thieves Guilds, they're kind of everywhere in their own little ways already in the setting without having to have a fighters guild. That just kind of sounds like, you know, like some place where where mercenaries and freelance warriors, get quick jobs at. The Adventurers Guild and Goblin Slayer is probably a better model for what a Fighters Guild would operate as. It'd just be, like I said, like a nice place you can come and get some tea and wait in line to get your paperwork, and but like, is it actually being run and staffed by warriors itself? It could be like a bounty hunter kind of a posting thing put out by the kingdom, in more like impoverished type settings. Your central kingdom, there might be like a city guard. You might even have like some legal framework within the boundaries of like the immediate territory that city state has control of. But they might not necessarily have a freestanding army to just throw out any little thing. Generally, like, you have like your little stable of personal castle guards, maybe a few knights who are settled. It's not like they're hanging out with you all the time, like it's some sort of Camelot crap. There is a need, to post bounties on various things that are kind of just slightly out of the immediate domain to send just random cutthroats to go handle. And so, that's kind of what a realistic Fighters Guild could be in many ways. Like Fighters Guild, like, I guess implies that it's separate from the military training you'd get from joining an actual standing army or legion. Or even like the kind of training that comes with becoming a city guardsman or anything like that. It's kind of unnecessary, unless you want to have like some sort of mercenary or bounty option available in your setting just for random mission quest pickup kind of stuff. I guess you could also call like gladiator unions and gladiator guilds as a type of fighter guild, if there's an arena culture going on in some urban area or another. But I don't know. I kind of feel like they're really the least necessary in many ways of the various standard classic class guild kind of tropes that you find in these sorts of games. Mages guilds are also, like, if you want a really prominent presence of magic in your setting, it's a high magic setting. Magic's common and everywhere, and you have magic schools, and magic is just another vocation that people can learn if they just have enough time and training and money to have gotten into those kinds of schools and kind of stuff. Then sure, magic guilds are okay. I feel more you could kind of use them as a framework, as just what the secret society of wizards in a more spread out kind of a wizardry setting, where the wizards are there and they're in communication with each other, and they do kind of like if you want to like share in the common talent pool and get help and all that kind of stuff, like there might be some sort of fees and dues and a hierarchy and all that kind of stuff. You can very much model mages guilds on occult conspiracy groups, and reference old movies and all kinds of stuff, Eyes Wide Shut or otherwise. But I don't know, I've always found the idea that every town has a mages guild. It's like, once again, it gets into those things where if you overpopulate too much wonderful stuff in your D&D setting, there is kind of an element I personally find, especially with early adventuring for starting level characters, is like, why are they needed to do the stuff they're doing when there's all these more powerful people all around who could be handling this way easier and not being at risk of being clawed to death by a kobold in the night, kind of level of adventuring. It's a good chunk of why so many classic adventure modules and start off characters in little tiny towns out in the wilderness, because that puts them in a position where they are possibly the best fighter and wizard and all that available to these poor little townsfolk. So they're the only option available to stop the night kobolds that stalk them in the night of the night. Anyway, I guess that's about it on guilds. Like I said, this is just supposed to be an addendum entirely off the cuff without much forethought. But I got asked by Crap iPhone to talk a little bit more about Thieves Guild. So there you go. There's my advice. Go spend your money on someone else's stuff. And while you're spending money on Drive-Thru RPG, Drive-Thru RPG, for AD&D stuff, you can maybe buy some of mine too. Who knows? It's a new year. It's a new you with total party skills. Good night and stay waspinated.